Evening and welcome to another edition of Friday Night Magpie Live. No weekend game as such for us this weekend. We have to wait until Monday evening. Sky's the limit, you might say. We take on a rejuvenated Cheltenham Town under former Notts Championship winning manager Steve Cotterill. Your thoughts and views on our return to league action, lest we forget, as the form team in League Two. But despite Cheltenham still relatively lowly position, this I think is a really tough test for us, and probably a bit more pressure on it than we would have probably hoped after signing off with our last league win at Meadow Lane. In the ensuing time, we have been knocked out of the FA Cup for the fifth time this millennium by a non-league club, and we've also gone out of the Virtue Trophy, losing to Manchester United, which on the face of it, or Manchester United under-21s, doesn't sound too bad, but when you consider they lost their previous two games by 3 goals against Lincoln and Barnsley, not so good. And those of us that actually watched it, you'd probably say it was even worse. Your thoughts and views on our Cup defeats. Does it make any difference? 3 points against Cheltenham. Is everything forgotten about? Interesting interview today with Martin Paterson. They always are, to be fair. Martin described the Cup exits as a slap in the face, which football can bring along at any given moment in time, often when you think you might have cracked it. He also made, I thought, some telling comments about the squad situation, and he specifically mentioned in terms of numbers 13 or 14 players. How much do we read into that? Does that mean they're kind of his core group and has to an extent less confidence in what amounts to roughly 50% of the rest of the squad? And with that, clearly there will be debate and conjecture in the countdown to the January transfer window on January the 1st. Live on air on Monday evening, we had a change of goalkeeping coach. Martin Paterson has thrown a little bit more light on that. He described it as Steve Collis, the goalkeeping coach, coming to Notts to say he would like to leave to go to York to team up again with Stuart Maynard, and on that basis one assumes Notts then sought a replacement goalkeeping coach before allowing Steve to move to York. The new goalkeeping coach is coming from Ebbsfleet, and interesting, I thought that Martin said that he had been part of that interview process alongside Richard Montague and the brothers. So, if you like, those 3 pillars were involved in the interviewing, recruitment and selection process, which I would take as a positive step. Purely a personal view, I was never totally sure about the input that either Ian Birchinall, certainly Luke Williams in the early stages, and Stuart Maynard, actually how much input they had into recruitment, bringing people into the club. Certainly think Martin is a different animal to those 3, wants more of a say. I think he's probably more direct and certainly communicates his thoughts and views to Richard and to the brothers. So the new goalkeeping coach is now in situ. Well, also, thanks to Paul Sexton of Retford, who was regaling me with his worst ever trip for Notts. I'll read that out, and then if you can start digging deep into your memory banks. The worst ever trip, journey, call it what you will, you've had to come and watch Notts. The wheels come off on the way home. Maybe you didn't get home at all that evening. But I'll read you Paul's one out, and let's just see what else that stimulates among the flock. Thank you, as always, to our sponsors, our official partners, the Big Shed at the Trent Navigation, and also to JH Accountants. Let's dive into the message boards and get a few thoughts. Oh, and before I do that, another television date. Well, it's not so much a date change, it's a time change. Home game to Crewe on January the 24th, that's a Saturday game, has been brought forward from 3 o'clock to 12:30 for live coverage on Sky. Not ideal, but I guess in a way, I take that as a bit of a positive, because that's the only game, as I understand it from reading from Knott's statement, in January and February, that is going to be moved. The next round of TV fixtures, which start in March, will be announced in the new year. But so I take it as we've had one game changed, kickoff brought forward. So this is not something where we would be looking at having a series of games on a Monday night or a Thursday night or whatever. So it's not ideal, but personally, I kind of look at it from a positive perspective, and we are going to have the vast majority of our games on a Saturday, subject, of course, to where things end up with Forest and Europa League. Okay, let's dive onto the message boards. Jonathan Howick, Spotter's Badge, first on the lines this evening. Just wanted to wish the travelling fans on Monday a safe journey. I do miss away games as it's very difficult with my condition. I'll take a point. I'll take a point because Cheltenham are in good form since Steve Cotterill has gone in. I personally wanted him to stay back in 2010. Who knows what would have happened? Evening all from Royston. After the week we have had, how lovely would 3 points be on Monday evening? Tim Watchorn. Monday will require 100% improvement. Cotterill has bump started Cheltenham. They will not be any pushover. David Dawes, let's hope we pass forward more than back on Monday. Jonathan, part 3. I said earlier that I miss away games. I've got some great memories. Perhaps you could do a show, Paul, with the fans messaging about their favourite away days. I'm sure we will. Evening all from Bud Chatwin. Looks like Martin has already decided which players are to be sold, loaned, released in January based on his presser, and also Bud in his press briefing today. I think he's kind of, if you like, focusing on a core group and how much more time there is for others to force their way into that. I think he certainly wasn't impressed on Tuesday. And my understanding is it was one of Martin Paterson's paint peeling, shall we say, observations and lectures after the game. I think it's fair to say no stone was left unturned and no player was left in any doubt or illusion about the frustration of the head coach. Gary Pearce. Well, Manchester United didn't go well, just as bad as the FA Cup game. It showed that the reserve keeper for me is nowhere near the required standard. Gary Pearce, is it me or did we turn from a possession team to one that can't even do basic ball control, short passes or move? I thought, Gary, it was as much that Manchester United were infinitely better at retaining the ball than we were. And I would imagine that, I didn't see the games, but you have to wonder why Manchester United lost against Lincoln and Barnsley so heavily. I would venture to suggest physicality. Trying to play, if you want, for want of a better phrase, tippy-tappy football against Manchester United's under-21s is probably not the best way to try and beat them. Gary Pearce carries on. For me, Hall is too frail. Iapenda has has little presence. Norburn not for me, and so the list goes on and on. Debbie Coton, to be honest, apart from Maz Kuyar, no one looked as if they could quite give a damn. Gary Pearce, Traore, Gordon, second and third keepers, and so it goes on. Ian Cooksey, Iapenda's form has dropped. Dennis doesn't look like he's now got a goal in him. Adam Kent, it's been a tough week. Only lost against an overplaying Brackley narrowly. Let's remember, it should have gone to a replay. No one really cares about the Virtue Cup, do they? And I guess in that encapsulation are differences of the way in which supporters view those cup games. Some aren't particularly worried. Others now would be casting aspersions on quality of players who 3 weeks ago, we were saying the bee's knees should be picked for Jamaica. Great player, this, that, the other. Such is the modern world. Everything is judged instantly. And then the following day, it's judged instantly again, sometimes with vastly differing results. Adam Kent finishes by, I sincerely hope normal service is resumed on Monday. Dimitri Sofranak, who I believe is our Montenegrin pie. 3 points on Monday for sure. Cheers, lads, from optimistic Podgorica. Evening, Dimitri. Good to hear from you again, my friend. Andy Easom, have Cotter or El Joffrey been returned to sender? No. Certainly, I think El Joffrey would not have been able to play against parent club Manchester United. What else? Paul, for me, the real worry, the FA Cup game, was a team of part-timers were able to outwork us for the entire game. They looked fitter than us. The work rate of the Notts team just was not good enough. Colin Metcalf, Saturday and Tuesday proved one thing for me. Other than our starting 11 to 13 players, are the rest up to it? Very disappointed with certain players not taking their chances on Tuesday. Right, and that brings us kind of up to speed. Any more messages and thoughts that you've got, please keep sending them in. It helps me get through the 45 minutes to an hour tonight. Let's pick up, I think, as our last show was Monday. So from Tuesday, I had to bail with my hip again. I was going to go till about 5:30, so I'm watching it at home. And the one thing I absolutely thought, irrespective of result, is that there would be a real reaction from the players, that they would be tenacious, they would get in amongst Man United, they'd be strong, they'd be physical, we'd give them a proper game, shake them up, which is clearly how Barnsley and Lincoln did it. Yet for me, I thought that 90 was, in the context of having lost on Saturday, and I know we made changes, but for me, that's one of the poorest 90 I've seen for a long time by a Notts County team. Normally any manager after a bad result wants a response. You're not always going to get a result. But sometimes the harder you try, the worse you become. But for me, there seemed very little urgency. For me, we almost it looked like we went through the motions. I was really surprised, and clearly there were players that could stake a claim, and kind of the ones you think that should be knocking on the door. We saw a little cameo from Jarvis on Saturday. Pat Nevin on the telly is likening him to Cole Palmer. So clearly, Pat Nevin, who's a decent judge of a player, is kind of sees that Jarvis has got the tools, and you think, right, okay, let's see what you can do. Manchester United under 21s are not cloggers. And yet, in truth, we didn't see a lot from kind of Jarvis or Traore when, for me, that was a good opportunity to stake a claim. And Matt Dennis, who's got 6 goals, off to a flyer, doesn't necessarily at this moment in time look like a striker that scored 6 goals already this season. So I was surprised by that. I think the young keeper, look, I think the way that Notts announced his arrival, I thought personally was a tad disingenuous, in the sense we kind of presented him to offset the departure of Bass as the next big young goalkeeping thing in League Two football, with quotes from Gagliardi. And the reality of the situation is he's not played a single minute of men's football. He didn't get any breakthroughs or anywhere near a breakthrough at Nottingham Forest, which is, of course, a massively higher level. But it was almost he was sold into us as he's ready. And I think there's a lot of work on him just yet for him to be ready for League Two football. It's not to say he can't do it, but the reality of our situation is that Martin Paterson has not yet given him one single minute in first-class league football and prefers Kelleroos. And I suspect that's going to continue for the foreseeable. I think that's going to continue for the foreseeable. There's a debate to be had about strength of squad. And I think that there were several posters on our last show before that, 2 or 3 weeks ago, saying we've actually got a good squad. It's a better squad than last season. Personally, I don't think it is. It's only a personal view. I think it is a weaker squad than last season. But what I think Martin has done, and done very successfully, he's got more out of this group of players. I think if Martin Paterson had the group of players last year that would have included Bass and McGoldrick and Crowley, it would have been interesting to see how he managed Crowley, then I think he would have done quite a bit better than Stuart Maynard, if I'm honest. You can never prove it one way or the other. So, yeah, really didn't. Thought Tuesday, irrespective of virtue or trait, I thought that was a really, really poor performance. Okay, let's get a few more thoughts on the message boards. Here we go. Sorry, I'm struggling to read, believe it or not. One of the side effects when you give them blood thinners after the hip hop. The hip's fine, by the way, thank you. But it apparently one of the things, it blurs your vision, believe it or not. So I can't see very well out my right eye. So I'm sort of trying to read this. So excuse me if I cock up a little bit. Right. Let me get back to where we were before. Bud Chatwin. I knew you didn't go Tuesday, Paul. That's why we lost. Every TV game you haven't been to, we lose. Hope you are feeling better for Monday. I really want to go, bud. It's a 50-50 shout at the minute. As I say, the hip's not really the issue, but all this pain management and other stuff they dose you up with knocks you for six a little bit. Steve Silver, Lazarus to his friends. 1 or 3 points Monday night. Cheltenham make us forget about those cup exits. We have some players playing very poorly. Sure, Pato will have them out in January. Colin Metcalf, I completely agree, Paul. It wasn't the fact we lost on Tuesday that riled me. It was how we lost. Makes me think that Martin is right about certain players, and he's being very diplomatic about it. Andy Eason, my respect for Steve Cotterill grew some when post-match at Forest Green Rovers he took the time to come over to our following and show his appreciation. We're nowhere near, says Gary Pearce. Ian Cooksey, hopefully Martin gets as much input on recruitment of players as he has had on the goalkeepers coach. Hear to that. Wish Cotterill was our manager, says Raymond Haig. Colin Metcalf. I'm quite angry about the way our keeper situation has been handled. No pun on that one, I'm sure. And presented to us fans. A decent keeper is my number one priority in January. Ian Cooksey. These players are overachieving and can't be expected to do it for the rest of the season. I think there are some, it's a very valid point, Ian. January for me makes or breaks our season. And I'm talking in terms of recruitment. Adam Kent, contrary to Guy Pearce, I thought Iapenda has toughened up. Great to see. Ness has been the shining star, done very well, thankfully, with McDonald being injured. And of course, we're all desperately hoping, Adam, that Mr. Ness can have a run of games now, because that's clearly what is needed for him. Nigel Cameron, after last week, I'm not convinced the club is truly up for the fight. The summer's recruitment is starting to bear fruit, or lack of, and who is really surprised about that? Guy Pearce. For me, one of my all-time poorest players was Richard Liebert, but I am no longer sure. So many are fighting for that award. I didn't think Richard was that bad. I know the Liebert family. I played against him Sunday mornings. He was up at Middlesbrough, wasn't he? He had a career at Middlesbrough. Andy Eason, Steve Cotterill did really well to return to football, as he was extremely poorly with COVID. Indeed, he was very poor. And after he recovered, Shrewsbury sacked him, which I thought was, or parted company with him, or call it whatever, which I thought was quite poor. Greza Maxwell, poor from Notts on Tuesday. However, you could see the difference in coaching. They were half a second quicker in ball distribution, and the team played like they were well coached at an elite level. Yeah, look, Greza, you would hope that Manchester United's coaching staff would be better than ours, wouldn't you? And clearly they pick up the best underage talent, in the world, or on a par with your likes of Juventus, Real Madrid, and Barcelona. There's then a pathway, isn't there, as how you get them in. For me, I just couldn't really understand why we tried to play them at their own game and showed no real press intensity, and do what obviously Barnsley and Lincoln did, because don't forget, they didn't just beat them, they beat them by 3 goals, both of them. So, and was it the previous season somebody said that they'd lost 8-1 in a Virtue Trophy game? So this is not a Manchester United under 21 team that gets to the final of the Virtue Trophy every year. And they're all on 15k a week, says Greza Maxwell. I don't really know. Someone said, was it Adam Hassel, that the Manchester United under 21 coach, was it Travis Binion, played one game as a cricketer for Nottinghamshire many moons ago. Did I imagine that? Or not? I'm sure we have quite a few Notts fans who follow the cricket county. I'm sure I heard that. Anyway, let me know if I've gone completely doolally. Right, Cheltenham, Monday night. Who's getting ready to head off there? It's not exactly the greatest place in the world to be hitting on a Monday night, going around London, is it? Going around Birmingham, I should say. Hopefully we've got 600-700 following going. Yeah, Steve Cotterill. Had a lot of debate about Steve. I first bumped into him when I was at Leicester. Steve helped out on the coaching staff with Mickey Adams, and I like Cots. When he was at Notts, Howard Wilkinson rang me and spoke to me, and he said, "How's the young lad Cots going?" I said, "It's a great appointment. Says he'll get us up." I said, "He's very intense, you know." And I thought Howard calling somebody intense is in itself quite interesting, because Howard took Steve Cotterill as his number 2 at Sunderland. It didn't work out, left a bad taste in the mouth of Howard and Cots. They only lasted, it was a real short number of games. And then Cots kind of then recut his teeth again managerially at Burnley. Did well, he got them in the Championship. And I thought it was a brilliant appointment. And if there's one regret, and there's probably many, if there's one regret that Ray True has, it's that he did not retain the services of Steve Cotterill after we'd won the Championship in the Munto season. There was a lot of debate at the time that he was always going to leave, but I did speak to several other players, among them Ian Bishop. Cots, being Cots, would drive a hard bargain. Cots would want a view on better players being brought in when the club went up to League One. But he was prepared to stay. He was ready to stay. Unfortunately, Ray allowed him to leave. He may or may not have thought that was a cheaper option. ultimately it ended up being a much more expensive option. He had the right manager, allowed him to leave, and then spent double, treble, quadruple on a series of managers, hiring and firing of players, appointments, and so all those monies tallied up. It cost him a small fortune, and ultimately we ended up going back down. Neil Bishop was of a view, and Lee Hughes, that if Cots had stayed, then Notts would have gone up again. And they've obviously they're a far better judge of football than I am, but I think they would have been right. For me, Steve is a winner, very intense. As he then went on to prove, going to other clubs after Notts. Remember him getting Bristol City up, if you remember. He signed a certain guy called Aidan Flint. If you signed him at Bristol City, you'd like to have thought he might have signed him for Notts County, might you? Given that Aidan lives 15 miles up the road. So I thought that was a massive mistake by Ray. And I think Cots is a great manager. Cheltenham was the club where he cut his teeth. Started off player, manager, got them into the Football League. I think the Shrewsbury departure left a sour taste in his mouth. And clearly he was very seriously ill with COVID. I mean, it struck him down badly. It's kind of a sign of what a fighter he is, that he wanted another job. And I think Cheltenham, it's a great appointment, kind of going back to his past. I think he'll do fine. I certainly wouldn't worry about Cheltenham being relegated, which I think you would have done without him coming. Strong character, Cots, and he's a manager, not a head coach. He is a strong character. Lee Hughes tells the story, because Lee can be an easy player to manage. He can also be a very difficult player to manage. It's all about respect. And Lee and Bish both tell the story that when Steve Cotterill came in, sat all the players down, he succeeded. Well, Ian McParland, and then we'd had some interims, hadn't we? It was a bit of a revolving door. And at the time, Notts were about 6th or 7th. Which people forget. When Steve Cotterill came in, he sat the players down and he absolutely launched into them and said they were a disgrace. With the quality and the calibre of the players that were there, it was a disgrace that they were 6th or 7th. They should be winning the title. Rochdale at the time with 20 points clear. And clearly, if some managers do that, you might alienate the players. But Cots kind of established who was number one in the dressing room. The players bought into it, and the rest, as they say, is history, with that run of form between January and the end of the season. And that momentum, wouldn't it have been great had we been able to continue that the following season? We weren't. It fell apart. That's history, as they say. Excuse me. Let's get back to the message boards. Ian Cooksey. I keep an eye on non-league football, and I followed a player in National League North who could do us a job. A lad at Merthyr called Ricardo Rees. He's already got 15 goals this season. So Ian Cooksey, don't know whether he become his agent or not. Ricardo Rees, you heard it first from Ian Cooksey on the Magpie Circle. Colin Metcalf, anybody know why we played young Cisse on Tuesday? We did or didn't. He's out on loan, and we played him for that single game, then sent him back. Why? Gary Pearce, if Cots was not happy with the players, he would tell them. Not so much with Pato. Ian Cooksey and Ricardo Rees, he scored 33 last season. Can you remember the last player we signed from National League North with those kind of stats? David Amy, on Tuesday the weather was terrible, but the gate was 2,300 home fans, about 400 from Manchester United. The club also, they did a special offer on hospitality. Believe it or not, hospitality was sold out in both the rooms. I think it was something like 300 400 of those Notts fans were in hospitality, which was a very good effort. Jonathan is back with part 4. Is there any way I can send a long message in one go? I can't do it on YouTube messaging. That's why I send these little messages. Can I email the podcast? Yes, of course you can. Tim, watch on. Monday roll call. Me, Nigel Natras, and brother Dave, Pete Orm, and Glutton. We are all, I'm going to say, I thought there was somebody nicknamed Gluttons. We are all gluttons for punishment. Nigel Cameron. I drive up to Ross County to sign striker Ronan Hale if it was left to me. Won't we link with him start of the season? Can't quite remember now. The guy knows where the goal is and is in the Langstaff style. Debbie Caton. Cott sounds fab. Even so, Pato's got to prove that he's better. Actually, they sound to be quite similar. Maybe an approach, Debbie, and I think I'm right in saying Steve Cotterill. I'm not 100% with it. I think he might have managed Pato, possibly at Brighton. I'm not sure whether their paths would have crossed. Cots was at Burnley in the mid 2000s. Not quite sure whether Pato was there earlier, as early as that. But yeah, I think they certainly have a not dissimilar DNA and demeanour. Okay, now then. Worst ever away trips, things that all fell apart. So think back to what your worst visits, trips ever are. So this one's coming from our Retford branch, the Retford branch chairman of the Magpie Circle, Paul Sexton. Here we go. This was the FA Cup game, Brighton away in the 70s. He did think I was too young. Oh no, I think every Notts County fan was on that train that went to Bournemouth. And this is kind of a synopsis of Mr. Sexton's trip, which is quite funny in the end. Me and Dave Gilson travelled on the supporters train for Nottingham, only to find out on the way that the game was off due to a waterlogged pitch. Because of the railway scheduling and God knows what else, the train back, having arrived about 1:30, could not leave again till 6 p.m. So we got kicked out at Brighton station and were told to spend 6 hours in Brighton with it chucking down with rain. We went on the beach only to get attacked by Brighton fans, chucking stones at us. We all ran away in scenes reminiscent of Quadrophenia. To cap it all, we got back to Nottingham eventually. We'd parked in a multi-storey car park, but we hadn't realised it shut at 6 o'clock. No one was willing to drive from Retford to come to pick us up. No buses, no trains. So we spent the night wandering about Nottingham, freezing. We had a Chinese meal, and in them days, all pubs closed at 10:30. We tried to get into I don't know how many nightclubs without success. Only couples were allowed. We wandered around for hours. We took some milk off early morning milk floats. Eventually, having paced the streets of Nottingham all night, we got picked up mid-morning on the Sunday by my dad from the station. Now then, that is an away trip and a half. I guess some people will think, well, you can't get kind of like just go into a little hotel, but Premier Inn's Travel Lodges 40 years they didn't exist. There were very few hotels. Probably the one that sticks in my mind, I would have been about 12 or 13, mid-70s. The Mace family holiday was always at New Quay in Cornwall in August. And one year it had been fortuitously timed that when we were coming back on the train, Notts were away at Plymouth on the Saturday afternoon. So my mum carried on the train all the way home. We got off at Plymouth station, me and my dad, and went to the game. That was good because we won. Eric McManus was in goal. So we've seen Notts win 2-1 at Plymouth. Then the problem starts. So we get back to Plymouth station. Something to do with trains cancelled, changed, or whatever, meant we could only get so far as Birmingham, and that was it. So basically, we got on the train and we got to Birmingham at like 11 o'clock. As I said, no hotels or anything. So my dad just said, right, yeah, well, we're going to sleep in that waiting room on platform 9. And these little goldfish bowl waiting rooms on Birmingham New Street Station, Saturday night. Newspaper parcels, trains clanking all the way through all night. Literally just sat nodding away as a young 12, 13-year-old with me dad through the night. I never forget it. And then got the train back from Birmingham to Nottingham I think the first train was like about 11 o'clock. And there was them mythical stories doing the rounds then that sometimes the police would put you up in the cells or something if they weren't full. But we didn't bother doing that. We just stayed on Birmingham New Street Station. So as long haul trips go, that is about the most unpleasant I've had to endure. But it was good at Plymouth, to be fair. We won 2-1. Right, let's see some other memories. But Chatwin, Bradford City 96 at Wembley, horrible day, still am upset about it. Ian Cooksey, Spurs FA Cup replay 1986. Car broke down. Me and a mate ran down the hard shoulder of the M1, throwing it down with rain. Got a taxi from a garage to Leighton Buzzard rail station, train to Euston. At least you got to the game. Part 2, underground to Seven Sisters, a dodgy walk to White Hart Lane. It is a dodgy walk up there, isn't it? Turned up at the turnstile to hear the third Spurs goal go in, and we still got charged full admission, and we ended up losing 5-0. Adam Kent, my favourite, as opposed to worst away trips recently, have been to Grimsby, walking along the freezing seafront, having won there twice. Worst away day, Salford away last season. But Chatwin, my dad in the 60s and 70s would always sort out Easter or half-term holidays in places where he could watch Notts Away, yay, i.e. near Yarmouth for Norwich, I assume, Blackpool, North Wales, Devon, etc. There is devotion to duty. Excuse me. What else have we got on the message boards? I've seen something from Greza somewhere. I've been speaking with Jonathan today, and we have suggested that we need a guest appearance on your show. Mine and Jonathan's fees are minimal, by the way. We'll sort something out to get Jonathan on. I'm sure you're too busy laying floors everywhere at the moment, Greza. Okay. Excuse me. Colin Metcalf talking about Cisse. He meant Charlie Gill. Yes, because Charlie did play on Tuesday night against Manchester United. My mum never knew until the Saturday where we were going to go on holidays. She was never happy. Worst away game, says Debbie Coton. Easy, Crew away. Ian Cooksey, favourite away trip to Blackburn on my 18th birthday. They had a lucky number draw on the programme, and I won a £100, which was a lot of money in those days. Blackburn's one of them grounds, Ian. I can't remember the last time we were there. I know I've been there, and I think I went up in the 70s. Was it us and Blackburn vying to go up out the old third division? But I can't remember when Notts last played Blackburn. It's one of them clubs we just seem to have missed for, I don't know, decades, because they've been up and down divisions as well. But I just can't remember us having played them at all. Okay. Excuse me. Any other thoughts, observations ahead of Cheltenham on Monday evening? There was something else I was meant to try and update you with from the club, but I can't quite remember it. Oh, yeah. So I am informed that there will be a decision announced, or there will be an announcement about the mythical unicorn status third kit very shortly, all will finally be revealed. There will be a third kit. I believe there has been what is euphemistically described as a supply issue. So eyes and ears peeled, and there should be a fairly imminent announcement about the third kit. Personally, I don't have a problem with it. I'm sure it will sell out. These limited edition third kits invariably do. And if we wear it and we win in it, it instantly becomes our favourite kit, doesn't it? Conversely, we play in it and lose, it'll probably never be worn again. Ian Cooksey goes on. Boxing Day 1990 was the last time we played there, was it? Crikey. This is at Blackburn, won 1-0. I presume you just gone and Googled this, Ian, so I'm trusting you to be right. We won 1-0, Kevin Bartlett. Then 3 days later, we won at Newcastle 2-0. Debbie Caton says retro question mark. I honestly don't know, Debbie. I honestly don't know, but I know they've had significant issues getting the damn thing, customs, I don't know, port clearance, you name it, getting it here. But as I said, there's an announcement shortly. Will Tate. My first away day was with my dad as a kid. Borough away in the cup, lost 2-0. It was freezing, but very happy memories. I think, Will, that was round about 82, 83, just after the New Year, FA Cup third round. I think there was a train ran up there that day, if memory serves. Tim Watchorn, Crabble Park, Dover. 3 trips, 1 a night trip to get it played. We won. Yeah, I think I did all 3. I certainly did 2. I think I might have done 3. Bud Chatwin. He's saying slightly different. March the 30th, 1991 was the last time we played Blackburn in League 2. 1-4-1. I think we can agree it's a bloody long time ago. Colin Metcalf. The coming month is quite important for me from a Notts perspective. Need to pick up as many points as possible to keep us in touch, as the Christmas period looks very tricky. Yes, you look at our December fixtures, there ain't too many gimmies. Not that there are gimmies, but there looks a heck of a lot of really challenging fixtures. Gary Pearce. My first away game was on the other side of the Trent. Not been the same since. There we go. Right. I think that just about wraps it up before my eyes disintegrate completely. I need to go in a darkened room and lie down. Thank you, one and all. There will not be a Sunday morning show because I can't think what else we can talk about between now and Sunday morning. So I hope to see you out and about at Cheltenham on Monday. And so what me and Stella are doing, we're going to be doing a show on Tuesday night. So our main, if you like, the normal Monday night show will be on Tuesday, the night after our trip to Cheltenham on Monday evening, which is live on Sky. All right, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your Friday evening. Enjoy a weekend with no football. Not sure what everybody's going to get up to. Get used to it, unfortunately. Now we're out of the Cups, there's going to be another one soon as well, isn't there? Yeah, it's funny when you're in Cups, managers complain about intense fixture schedule. Well, we ain't going to have to worry too much about that this season. Just wrapping up a few final comments. John Parnham, one of my favourite away days was Cheltenham last year. They played well, putting 3 against us, but we won. Abbott's goal was a screamer, and we were magnificent. My worst away game, Kings Lynn. Was that the Boxing Day one when he got called off? When basically it was never going to be on with all the rain. I think I got all the way to Kings Lynn. I think I got to the entrance to the ground to see various Kings Lynn fans walking the other way to be told it was never going to be on. Ian Cooksey, look after yourselves, everybody. Fingers crossed for 3 points. Adam Kent, my first away game was also at Forest. Drew 1-1. Gary Lund got our goals in the 90s. Thank you, one and all. We've done a half. We've done a half tonight, 45 minutes. Look after yourselves. Have a nice, relaxing weekend. Hopefully, look forward to seeing everyone at Cheltenham on Monday evening. We'll be back with the show on Tuesday. Look after yourselves. See you all soon. Cheers for now. Bye bye.